Everyone. Welcome to Barrio's PS 109 Artspace. And thank you for coming. I just want to say that this is a living workspace. There are 89 living workspace units in this building. I live here along with a lot of other artists and some other people, and we all try to get along. It's pretty good. Okay, we are here because, well, to do our thing with our book. I'll introduce our host today, and I'm just here to say that Rorinda Ramos is to thank for allowing us to use the gallery space here today, and I want to thank her. You know, she does a great job. Allows so many things to come. She might drop by. I was hoping she'd be here now, but if she comes by, I'll have a wave. You should meet her. Anyway, thank you for coming here today, and I really appreciate you guys being here. And now, Mr. George Wallace is going to introduce us, the editor of the NYC, who is going to tell us about the program.
Thank you. A round of applause for Papoleto Melendez. Thank you for putting this together. The first live reading here in New York City. Some of you joined us in Philadelphia for AWP, but the publicist said that doesn't count. Whatever happens in Philadelphia stays in Philadelphia. So this is our first real live reading for New Yorkers from this book of New York City poetry, and I'd like to thank you who all contributed to this, and I'd like to thank those of you who did extra work on it in various sorts of ways. A number of people here in that capacity that I'll recognize as we go through. But first, let me just say once again, Papoleto was really instrumental in getting this particular thing going, so I want to thank the person for that. I'll tell you that in the back, almost in New Jersey, is the wine. And at any time, you know, get up and walk around and stretch your legs or whatever over the hour and a half or whatever we're going to be doing this reading, and get yourself something to drink. Bathrooms over there to the right, restrooms. And the books, New York City from the inside are over here. There's a number of them. I've given out contributor copies, but if you go crazy in love with what you hear and say, I've got to get 5 copies of the book, you know, which is possible, you know, I can facilitate that for you. Other than that, just enjoy listening to our readers here today. For the readers, I'm going to tell you that we have plenty of time, so plan on reading your poem from the book, and unless it's 5 pages long, which I don't think there's anybody here who has a poem that long, you know, 3-4 minutes from that, plan on spending a couple of extra minutes reading something else of your own that you like to. And I sent you an email about that, as well as if you choose to pull something from the book that you admired and loved, or you love the person that's in the book and want to be able to read from the book, you're welcome to do that as well. So as we go through, we will probably spend, for 10 people here who are the featured readers, one had to cancel because he had an actual paid gig. Other than that, everybody's here and welcome. So, you know, let's stretch our legs, relax, and enjoy reading from this wonderful book, which is getting a lot of press. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to welcome you one by one up to the stage, as it is, to read from the book. I'm going to do it alphabetically by first name. Francine asked me to do it alphabetically by personality disorder.
I'd still be first.
You'd still be first. Angelo Verga, the new host from 28th Street Cafe. Come on. Anorexic.
Anxiety. Yes, I have an anxiety disorder. Wow. Microphone. It's cool. Okay, thank you, George. Thank you, Papo. It's really, really good to be here. First reading in New York, so I guess that's the first reading, right? All right. Philadelphia doesn't count. I'd like to read the poem of mine that's in this. I got the book right here. Its name is Paul Revere. Da, 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 da. Here it is. Wow. Okay, misplaced. Now there's a Target, maybe a Walmart on Bleecker Street. And I rush in and crash into a waitress from my ex-cafe. I didn't remember her, but she remembers me. She's suddenly a tall redhead. And some other guy, I guess, probably a waiter. We chat about Bob, though they keep calling him Roberto. I recall Bob and his isolation at the corner of the bar, tucked away from all the hustle and bustle and scuffle. Very cool. Possibly the coolest guy I ever met. And he came from Staten Island, so you never know where the cool guys will be from.
Yeah.
I'd like to read the poem that my friend Bill Zavatsky has in this book. And because the bios are so long, I can't find it. There it is. This poem is by Bill Zavatsky. The 104 bus uptown. How bad can it be? Dear wacky New York City, when the first 12 lines of the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock blinked down at me from a poster on this bus, brought to us courtesy of the MTA and the Poetry Society of America, which incredibly I am a member. And to its right, above the rear door, another poster, Charles Reznikoff's little poem about the lights go out in the subway, but are on again in a moment. I guess I will teach, a poem I will be teaching to my students in a few weeks' time. Perched, I did pop a pee, perched in the center, back seat. She got off at 7th Avenue. She got on 7th Avenue and 42nd Street, sitting all alone as if on a tiny stage lit by the bus window daylight of Midtown New York, the attractive actress Beverly D'Angelo, whom I can't bring myself to ask if she is Beverly D'Angelo, except that I recognize the perfection of her charming overbite as she chews gum like mad under wild blue eyes, aging, behaving as if she never sat on a bus before, as if she expects a passenger to leap up at any moment and cry, "Action!" with the cameras rolling like the eyes in my head as I turn now and again to look at her in her white jacket and skirt that don't quite match, a silk turquoise blouse, the color keys her luminous eyes, which just got off with the rest of her at 57th and 8th. I'm lucky enough to have been handed this piece of paper 20 minutes ago by someone on the street who must have been a secret agent for poetry, though it seems to be nearly as an advertisement flyer for 45th Street photo, on the back of which I have just written this poem. That was Bill Zavatsky. And I'm going to read two really short poems by me that are not in this anthology, and that are printed on poster paper and would make lovely place settings if you have a poetry dinner at any point in your life. Apartment living. We trip over the idea of a table, a dilapidated desk put out in the hall. Instead of discarding our junk, we drag other people's trash in to augment ours. Will we never get rid of our boxes, our piles of clothes, stacks of papers that have grown vine-like in a sultry downpour? We acquire even more stuff, pushing more darkness upon a toxic swamp within which to drown. Our plan is to push down the clock, giving us time to clear out. They don't have apartments like that in Los Angeles, by the way. I don't want to offend every other city in America. Okay. The woman in my subway station. This is not my current subway station. This is when I lived all the way downtown in the financial district. The woman in my subway station has, besides her stench, 19 piles of New York Times, her swollen feet fragrant atop her shoes, her magnifying glass passing over opinions and ads. She stirs a stew of beige with her plastic, transparent spoon and ignores coins and out-of-season fruit from strangers as a second cast-out woman brings her pizza scraps. Twice a day, they surface to harvest vitamin D inside a grove of towering concrete slabs, rain and wind and what passes for outdoor light. At night, she drifts on a conveyance of nail clippings. She has perpetual rights to her private bench, surrounded at all times by circumstantial flies. Archived, Sunday Times, divided by section. Arts and leisure, travel and adventure, urban style.
I just wanted to say that Herlinda is in the room, and I wanted us to acknowledge her right there. There's Herlinda. Come on, right there. Thank you, Herlinda.
Did you want to get up and say anything? Did you want to come up?
I just want to thank you all for being here today and for the writers and poets, and it's an honor to have you in the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for opening this.
Thank you.
Next reader is, she doesn't know this, but in the year 2014, I got in a car accident, wrecked my car, and I was waiting for the AAA to come and pick it up and take it away, and I was just absolutely destitute, destroyed. And while I was sitting there waiting for the AAA to come, I got a text from Christy and Timm saying, "Would you like a job up at Westchester Community College?" I don't know if I ever told you that, but I took it. So she's a savior of mine, as many people here are in their own way. She's going to read to you a poem from the book about sleeping with Gregory Corso and perhaps something else as well. Please welcome Christy and Timm.
Thank you. I really appreciate being part of this beautiful book and being part of this this event. Before I came here today, I was judging an NAACP poetry and short story competition, annual competition. I was struck by the many voices, the many diverse voices that those students had, and I thought it's really great, George, that you create these venues. You know, it's poetry, it's literary arts, it's also activism, right? And so many places where these young people can go to hear, you know, veteran poets and then also participate. And I thought of my own experience. My parents weren't poets, My dad was a musician, my mother was an artist, working class, but I didn't know anything about poetry until I went to college. And I had the really good fortune to end up in Allen Ginsberg's City University of New York list, like at the end of his life. I don't know how that happened, but he introduced me to poets like, you know, his hero Walt Whitman. And I thought of Walt Whitman and how he was a journalist, you know, going around and interviewing people, collecting voices in all the boroughs. And those voices would surface in his poetry. So I just wanted, you know, Gregory Corso wasn't the only person I didn't sleep with, by the way, but Walt Whitman is also, this is called Sleeping with Walt Whitman. I imagine him ambling down Bleecker, looking both ways before crossing Houston, turning his nose into a deli on Delancey, sinking his teeth into a pastrami sandwich. I spot him petting a German shepherd, giving a coin to the Irish beggar woman, sipping some green tea in Chinatown, peeling a ripe plantain. Now he's humming a hushed hymn of praise to the Union Square daffodils, to the scarlet horizon, to the sun-struck swallows, to the impassive steel bridge, to Gutenberg, to smokestacks feeding presses. And look, now he is bending down to stroke a Central Park sheep. And he stops by the Chelsea Market to buy a baguette or a poppy seed bagel. He is not poking the refrigerator meats. He's not starving, he's not naked, he's not hysterical. He is very holy, flirting with the young boys down by the watermelons before hopping the trolley to Harlem. On a narrow cobbled byway, I spy him on the approach, the bold white tangle of power, vast in my wide-eyed periphery, the pensive grin, gaze reaching out toward the familiar, embracing the clink of the garbage trucks and the clank of the chatter, the hurrahs of the pavement, the excited jokes of the promenaders. And I wonder, when he greets me, will he say, does the twittering blue breast astonish? Does the transparent summer morning astonish? Does the street corner busker, does my halo? Or, how you doing, babe? In his Bushwick twang. And I will rejoin, there's a party tonight on the Bowery. I hope you'll dance with me. Or an awkward, recall how once we reclined on the park bench rainbow, how you turned your hips toward mine and plunged your tongue into my striped heart. Recent poem because all voices need to be heard. Because for those of us who had felt the hand under the skirt and kept silent, because the sideward glance, because the strappy heels, because the smiling wife, for those who saw the stuff of man unwillingly, unrequested, and kept silent, because the backstreet rumor, because they didn't get it right, because the sweet girlfriend. For those of us who are pushed down like scared squirrel and still keep silent, because the nightmares, because the wide-eyed children, because we don't do that in our family. For those of us who ran from the stroking hand but got the A anyway, because so long ago, because a legacy, because his job. So we learned to turn the cheek and we learned to dodge the streets. We learned to run like a squirrel on a wire. We learned to not get stung. Go chase the breeze, girls. Go do what you please. Catch your breath, get off your knees. Show your temper, show your heart. Ditch the baggage and the calorie chart. Raise the flag and play the part. For those of us who tripped but did not fall, because we run, because no napping, because we flirt and don't mean it, because we play dirty, because we bake, because we refuse to iron, because we win at poker, because fly planes, because kick his ass, because of be in our bonnet, because I believe you, because dick so what, because we're so done, because the last word, because the last word, the last word, the last word, because, just because.
Yeah.
So let me just read my poem from this book. It's called Sleeping with Gregory Corso. And I guess just following on the heels of that poem, I think everyone in this room can relate to this. Sometimes the survival strategy is humor. You gotta, that's me anyway. You gotta have a sense of humor. Otherwise, you know, I don't know. It's all, you know, yeah. It all falls apart. I gazelle leap in 2 steps beats, your Roman coat breath flies fast and deep. 6 flights to Allen's Flat. I may need to hug your stocky hand to precipice. You'd like that. Kneel at my feet, you howl. I will choke you with my charm and set loose the poem I wrote for your curly locks. Hey, in fact, let me grab one now as I am slowly slipping off my high horse. Allen pokes Playboy tail with rolled up St. Mark's program. I hang from above. We will haul this mad yak to Ginzey's temple in record time, but your shrine hosts newly drawn snapshots, sketched mental notes. I can breeze through your mind and other cool places, sit on your lap while you tell tales of minstrels long ago, beating time with tongue and drum, howling truth into ears of the oblivious. The sheets are clean and there is enough rum to drown a shipload of pirates. How can I say no to a man whose twisty antics drive men ditzy, whose unrhymed palaver shoot a gal's knees weak, whose plopped love bomb rattles poet heaven, whose best and only pickup line is his surname? Corso, I love you. I want to kiss your clank and eat your thunder, put a lollipop in your mouth, carve your name on my bare ass. Corso slept here, track you to Tangiers, 2 thumbs out on the highway to poetic passion. Please don't leave me with Orlovsky. He is weird and his comic books are scary. Wail for Corso is dead. Wail for Corso, wail. But what will we do with your bones? That beautiful tale.
We'll be having some more tattoo poems on before the evening is over, the afternoon is over. Our next reader is hails from the hallowed grounds of 168th Street and Grand Concourse in the Bronx. Later made his mark in the Lower East Side and is really known all over the country and if not all over the world. Please welcome Edwin Torres.
Yeah. Thank you, George. It's great to be here. You know, New York is my hometown, Bronx / East Village / the grimy streets. It's important to capture all those voices, and it's a beautiful endeavor to have this incredible artifact. So thank you for the time involved and Papo for hosting this. I have so many poems about New York, so I kind of like, I chose 3. Let me get my poetry glasses on. Ah! The voice changes, the poet comes out. Okay, so there's 3 poems about New York, roughly. This is from the anthology. No Yo-Yo. He's from New York, from Puerto Rico, New York. He's a New Rican, what they call a Rigueño. Being New or Rigueño, speaking New or Rican. A New York-seeking New Yorker. Is he new or a porter? A port of sherry. Sherry, sherry. Puerto, puerto. Yorko, yoko, el coco. ¿Qué hablas? Se habla coco. Noco. No city. Port of no city Rican. A Puerto Rican is called a Boricua. A Boricua? A boring what? A bore. This is boring. Into my yawner. What you saying? What news saying? The news say be the new city of York. A Yorkie, a pit, a bull, a toro, a Torres, a no-res. A city no-no. A city Yorker, uncorked. A boozer, a bozo. A new bozo. Yo soy bozo. In the yo zone. Yo soy the new yo. That's some new yo, bro. Yo Rican, see, soy no Rican. He's no Rican. From no Riqua. He's no you. No yo, no I. The I in I is the new yo. I be some of that new no. From no Riqua, bro. Coney Island, 1969. My father was the manager of Nathan's Hot Dogs on Coney Island. A memory inside a beach ball. My cousin reaching below the surface. Water in my lungs, gagging, blue sky, technicolor white where skin should be. My father watched me walk the sidewalk cracks from a bedroom window in the Bronx, asking me what I thought I was doing, how a line is straight when you walk it, how a man knows exactly where to go. My father took us to Nathan's at Christmas, company party, Santa, 1,000 presents for each and every child. The boardwalk was cold, the rides empty. Coney Island winter, you had to warm your fingers by hiding them from the ocean. My father gave us hot dogs and fries between his affairs. He gave me animals to show his love. I had a beagle, a turtle, 3 guinea pigs, and 2 Java rice birds. I loved them, so I loved my father. My father took me and my 2 sisters to the Statue of Liberty. He told me it was made of Limburger cheese. I loved him. He never hit me. He never hugged me. I had to walk straight, that's what he told me. When I visit my father at St. Raymond's Cemetery, I find his gravestone. I have a son, I tell him. Winter is our time, when he left, when all those presents at Nathan's were opened, all those families. My father towered over me, laughing in his eyes. You're my little man, he'd say. From up there, the bumper cars, the mirrors, all those reflections. My father had a relationship with scale, an intuition for location, to remain long enough to be found, calling to catch what will, does to wait. My father was never Coney Island to me. He never knocked on the door that morning in the Bronx. My mother didn't open, no cops told her nothing. She didn't hide her face in her hands. No silent tears, no floor I play my Indians on. No roller coaster tell me no turn, no question come from long legs, no mean kids, no skinny mirror. My father had yoga thumbs. Look what I can do, I'd say, leaning out just far enough to make you catch me.
Wow.
And that somehow reminded me of the island that we're on, and the island that my parents are from. This is called Song of No Island. From the edges that inspire me, to the edges that surround me, to the edges that define me, I'm a land of no horizon. From the galaxies below me, to the galaxies above me, to the families inside me, I'm a man of no horizon. I want to speak American. I want to speak my island. I want to go where I can know. I want to reach no island. How do you speak no American? How do you speak no island? I want to know where I can go if I can speak no island. From the waters I was born in, to the borders I will die in, to the edges I imagine, I'm a man of no horizon. As I walk the open skyway, free of all I hold inside me, what I leave for those who love me, in the land of no horizon. I want to preach a miracle. I want to speak no island. I want to go where I can know. I want to reach no island. I want to speak no American. I want to speak my island. I want to know if I'm alone. Are you the same as I am?
A taste of lingualism. Thank you for that. Next reader is a person who I have to thank for being instrumental in helping me to make this a cross-sectional book. We're reaching out to a lot of different communities. Jeff Wright really helped me quite a bit, and his listeners a thank you, or 1 or 2 other thank yous here as well. which you'll see, and they'll be here up on the stage. But Jeff was very important to me. For that, please welcome from Live Magazine, Jeff Wright.
Thank you, sir. See if I can do this without all this stuff sliding off. Ooh. Slide. So that was wonderful. It's been a great day. It's so nice to be here. Thank you, everybody. And this is the ritual of poets do this. What was I supposed to say? So I was lucky enough to go to the press preview for the show over at El Museo del Barrio by Rafael Montano Ortiz. And it was a terrific show, and he was the founder of the museum. And so we're going through the show, and there's a poster there for the Young Lords, and I get it mixed up. I said, oh yeah, those guys like Chavez and all. And they go, no man, that's the Latin Kings. So, it's always good to show your ignorance, everybody get on your side. Anyway, it was a real honor to be over there and to see his works, and he had deconstructed a lot of stuff, but he had done it a long time ago. But he had done it in such a way that he created new personas and new voices, and it's really terrific to be in this. I wanted to say how George had really kind of echoing what has been said about how he just pulled such a huge community together, and you know, in the end, in a lot of ways, that's what it's really all about. So, with that being said, I wanted to read a poem by Miguel Algarín, a poem that I wrote. Sorry, not that good. A poem that I wrote by. Saturday at Biblios from Miguel Algarín. Driven by juju vibes, radio ahead, Mambo Mama. Belted out, Hefe. Black and blues, mangrove hydraulic, gear shifting congas, congregating. Solid, cool yo-yo swimming upstream, eagles spreadsheets to the wind. You hammer home the orgasm with a golden nail of woven time, colored by fire and driven by unconditional love in your 76 red and white Buick Electra 235, lighting the sky's last cigarette and laughing from the belly bop, belly bop, belly buck to the end. Biblios, that was him reading, you know. So then I thought, I'll do another one. I got two from Miguel. This one is called A Boutonniere. The gods of Vodka River declare, death shall have no sway here, my little problem child. My boutonniere at the Ding Dong Lounge on 105th. Raised up on 6th Street and FDR Drive, you're always down for cooked peaches in Newport or San Juan. You regret that men can't say chicks anymore. Dirty looks, I know them well. You must be a mold. In the rear, you quip. Our bar stools spin. Lit candles prick night's womb. Onyx spectrum panther driven. Let's go for a ride together on the whip. So I was lucky enough to publish Pedro Pietri a couple of times, so with your indulgence and with my dance forgiveness, please, I'm going to recite a Pedro poem. And it's probably called, I think, Poem 151. Dear Equal Opportunity Employer, I am calling to tell you that I feel too good to come to work today. If I feel bad tomorrow, I will be there early. There you go. So, New York is the muse, one of the, the big-ass muse. Classic Manhattan. Oh, I wanted to just also thank Yuko, who actually published this book with Steve, and I appreciate that. Yuko. Yay. Classic Manhattan. Use locally sourced rye whiskey. Today we are using Defiant from upstate. Play Nina Simone's Memphis in June. Pit 3 Bing cherries and put them into a chilled tumbler. Add 2 ounces chilled Defiant rye. Add 1/2 ounce chilled sweet vermouth. Add 1 ounce chilled tart cherry juice, 2-3 dashes of bitters. Today we are using the bitter truth. Strain over ice. It's an instant classic, like you. Making it up as we go. It's Manhattan in June. The fountains titter over their fortunes. And this one's called Come On Now. Evening stoops under its sodden shawl. A siren broods its caterwaul, snarling over blackened roofs. Someone's on the run. Wet tires whisper to Avenue C. I am lost without you, they swear. I wanted to be a matador in Manhattan, dancing with horns. I wanted to be a genie, smoking in your coat of arms. While you gave the raindrops names, I made up a little song called You'll Never Be Happier Than When I Was a String on Your Harp. Thank you very much. And now, I just wanted to end with a sample of, this is Erato's inbox. And Erato was one of the 9 muses, and she was in charge of erotic poetry, but really more like, back then it really meant sort of conjugal, and also lyric poetry, so her thing was a lyre, she carried on a lyre, or sometimes a guitar, which I guess was a guitar, right? So not a whole lot known about her, but I'm just gonna put this down, it's sliding right off of there. Erato's inbox. Muse or goddess, or an amuse-bouche. Helpmeet, mate, help, meet, fate. I am a double lie, fed by natural desire, a sin box, a dream wave, brimming, liquid scripts spilling in the shining abyss, playing a lyre for my lover, a song I learned from a grasshopper fire. What I would be, a flame on your lip, I tell you, go, get insurance on your hot rod, whale-gasm, empire. I'm a seed fulcrum of allness. I strut the seraph in a church of bones. I submit to 3-penny review. 1,000 Medusas rush the barbershop. I look away. Moaning Lisa, smile. I am Folsom Prism. Happiness will travel, a charmadillo. The rain is my little drummer boy. I am a contronym from way back, e.g. sanction. Skipping stoned across the ponds of memory, listening to Handel's fanfare, the arrival of Sheba, finding purpose in looking for you, at you, into you, and through, where the questions feel no shame. Shipping agent of companionship, as Vincent might have said, I live to give. As the web survives the storm, a single string catches the sun. Neon signatures on 2nd Avenue, surly furies, let my people growl. Reading the book of passwords, knee slap, belly laugh, guffaw, side split, chortle, snicker, giggle, titterwit. Reading ventriloquism for dummies. I earn my keep babysitting mortals. Not bad for an old codger, waiting for the goat, the badger, the beaver. Deconstructivism, Whistler's moth. On tour with a miniature minotaur. Listening to the Spring Miniatures by William Lloyd Webber. Paxlovid's dog peels back the curtain, interrupting bells of trimmer ice. No one is above the jive scamper rompathon, except when you're on top copying. Keep it close to your ear, this strand, coral contouring, this camouflage hiding in a glass bottle full of glass. Oh, fuck this part up. Well, anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you. repositioning the camera as we speak. The self-described perpetually young elder statesman of New York City poetry. Our Uber host here, please give a warm welcome. Put your hands together for Jesus Papoleto Melendez. Please welcome Jesus.
Okay, thank you, George.
All right.
George Wallace, editor, NYC from Inside. Very good. Thank you, George. Great accomplishment for the fun book. Okay, so I'm going to read my poem. Okay, well, poetry makes nothing happen. Okay, 150 something. Thank you. It's great having you guys over here this afternoon. Really wonderful. We got to do this more often. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair for fair. This actually happened. That's why I wrote the poem. It has a whole story, but that's from the Today, I saw a poet panhandling poems in a subway train. Subterranean, beneath a bustling city of flashing lights, sandwiched boarded between a poem and advertisement crying homelessness. Reading from the scribbling prose upon a page in a composition notebook, apologizing that celebrity and fame are not equated quite the same as his fortune and fame, thus promising to pay it forward whenever life on earth improves. He grooves in perfect iambic pentameter against the roaring railing wheels, against the steel of reality and life, against the will, against the wind, against the word, against the world. And I'd like to share with you a brief poem from Borracho by Naspa. We had the opening for this, the book party when prior to Corona. We just had it, it was like February of 2020, and then the whole world closed down. So, and we didn't even have a copy of the books that could, still being printed. But there it was. Anyway, that was the opening. So this is from this book. Two women sitting. There are two women sitting on a bench across from me, kissing. At this distance, they appear like lovers, a man and a woman, since both wear trousers, but both are women and yet appear as lovers, a man and a woman. They hold each other passionately and embrace. They fall into each other's arms, then lean one into another, and here they are lost, as lovers often are. Their mingle entwines to where, if they were a man and a woman, one observing could not tell which was the woman and who the man.
Fair for fair. Thank you, Papoleto. I'll say that we have to go over that poem 5 times to get the spelling correctly. Fair for fair, fair for fair, fair for fair. Fair finally got it right. I hope it's spelled correctly in the book. Well, next I'd like to welcome a person who I first met in Philadelphia and read for us for the first time. We learned a lot about what it's like to experience fireworks over Crown Heights and the booming music of the streets. Please welcome Mahmud.
Thank you all for being here. The first poem I'm going to read is it's kind of like a homage to Apollo. You know, he's the Greek god of light and poetry and healing. If what I carry may be carried away. Here I am, Apollo, raised over crimson bricks, piled in haste, then laid to rest. Between your hands, my hands interlace. What I hold is a heavy rust, chipped roof, I cradle eggshell white, paint peeling, cracks revealing, the undercurrent resolution. I could dream her here, nearly approaching. I could live on a promise at sunrise. Cerulean jewels of another dawn, buried in the earth's navel, in pursuit of the iris meadow, pure meaning. Apollo, these amethyst glances pierce my amber-sealed heart. Full of butterfly wings I hold for who? I bow my head as you ask the question, what holds you? Here I am, apologizing for this cutthroat quandary. Mercy lives in my howling. Apollo, I sing to you, so my heart may be freed from a shallow breath, breathing blanketed air. When her sun-bright alabaster blue, sight, seen low as another truth to bear. Apollo, I wonder, what do I do as I am here? I've only just met this body, holding more than it can carry. Pockets full of lead, shoes full of dwelling. Apollo, you say I am not thinning, plastic, stuck between tree branches. A breeze bringing frayed recollections, wasted on tribunals and tribulations. If what I carry may be carried away, then there is no reason I've been dragging this non-recyclable wreckage, convenient baggage, a chokehold to the coral reef, able to suffocate my inner child, so what I keep out of reach. Who told you that? Apollo asks. I speak no image, but call it a mask. I stay poised as past century winds its way through the mountains I make of one sentence. By the time I recall my spine's authority to posture, Apollo asks a new question. Who do you think is behind you when you shudder at your shadow? A series of exclamations mark my body, reminding me I'd been told. I don't know is not an answer. Is that the answer? And this next poem is, it's a cento, so for those who don't know, it's like basically like a collage of words from another source. I did a visual collage and collages from, it was an art forum interview, openings, Sung Hwan Kim by Travis Jefferson. Ideas are less the thing. As we hear a narrative reveal the physical scenes slotted into symbols, fabric has been spread with an image. Before this passage into the refraction of light, it helps to know of the collective. If we were to try to entangle the chaos of codes flickering on a monitor, further narrative shifts. Certainty is eclipsed. The lights in the complex go out. Suddenly, we are presented with a third voice, lived in as a child. The bizarre fable ends at her feet. Narrative seems to come apart and reconstitute a strange network of gestures, symbols of wisdom, harbingers of flux. A masked figure revels in it. Then I have a couple small poems, and then I'll read from the anthology. Then it all went dark. When the blue days leave us, we sit inside our walls, think no higher reach than created enclosures. We make blue windows for the wind, shudder at its gust, eventually seal them shut. Then it all went dark. Cold no longer sings the scales, where my limbs, exposed and wind-whipped, carried thorns and stiff fingertips, where my thoughts glanced at your God, and a voice that thawed the moment drowned out the sun, when we spoke in a loud thunder. And this is the poem that is in the anthology. And thank you again for George Wallace for putting this all together and bringing us all here today. If the spark whistles. If fireworks only aim to puncture the atmosphere, if the crackling splinter flames and scatter, if the spark whistles or bursts in unannounced, if a triplet staccato clap breaks silence empty, spills dust on night-soaked Nostranav, where Crown Heights braces its walls in lockdown, summer erupts. Blast and breathless second, give my ears a chance to flinch. Questions trail up my throat and wade behind my teeth. Living room couch to half-shaded window, I watch myself tiptoe. Too much my grandmother's child to mind my own. Stage a battle crawl on a worn brown rug, devise a shield from an olive green corduroy chair. Haunch shoulders in a coiled bend, top half crouch. Because I heard a front door screen lock, knob lock, deadbolt, and zinc-plated barrel bolt, latch slide lock. Because a basement door has 2 barrel bolts. Because a further door, only 1 deadlock, secured with a wood plank. Because some nights, shots clutch my mother's nerves, aimed to puncture the atmosphere, if only.
This juncture, I'd like to, you don't have to do it, but if you would like to tell us something about the art show, or just a word or two about what's on the walls. Come on up, tell us about the show.
The artwork is an artist named Valery Oisteanu, and it just opened up yesterday. We're going to have an artist talk with him on the 12th, I believe, of this month. So if you want to join us for that, come on back at 6 p.m. And there's a pretty good writing that you can read to learn a little more about his work. But he's a local artist, and if any of you are artists and you want to exhibit here at some point, feel free to reach out again. But yeah, I think I just would like to invite you to the artist talk and learn more about him. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we? Alphabetically, what was it? Oh, first name, Meaghan Brothers. Originally native of North Carolina, but you can tell by the bio that she gave us for the back of this book that she's a true New Yorker, because in her bio she mentioned where she gets her pizza. Please welcome Meaghan Brothers.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, actually my pizza place closed in between my writing the bio and now, so it's a real bummer, man. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Everybody's in silent shock. That's a joke. There's other pizza places, it's all right. I'm not gonna get a DiGiorno pizza. Oh, man. Sorry. Oh man, I see what you guys were talking about with everything sliding down here. There's no edge on the little doodad here, so it comes right at you. It's action reading. First poetry reading in a surgical mask too. This is a new one for me, super exciting. I didn't think I'd be making this kind of fashion statement in my life, but here we are. and so happy to be here, which is the title of my poem. What a segue. I'm on fire. Okay. And ironically, or whatever meta thing, this was actually a poem about a poetry reading in which I was introduced as a New York poet, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm not from here, but thank you anyway. So that's what it's about, and enough tootling around. I guess I should read the poem. Sorry. If you haven't seen me read before, this is what I do. I stand here and just kind of yammer on nervously for about 10 minutes, and then the poem is only about 45 seconds long. So in my best Bob Newirth voice, I will introduce it again. It's called So Happy to Be Here. Beneath my name, they've stamped the city I live in, New York, New York, in black ink, the color of permanence. Am I from here now? Last time I went home, I didn't recognize the place. Slept outside with the cats, and nobody even offered me a guitar to play. Lately, I've been seeing so many things worth telling you. Baby goats with their horns burned off, an entire living room parked out on the highway, the clotted evening sky, the neons of McDougal Street burning alive. I'm so glad for you. I'm out with the trash, the Warhol dregs and dull-eyed hippies, the sozzled old punkers and their new young German wives. I'm out in the night with your boyhood friend. He told me your legends once, how you built an entire car from scratch just to have a place to sleep. And I'm hungry for every story, for every neon light, hungry for the Empire State in blush and blue tonight, hungry for the vegan place, the Ethiopian place, the Egyptian place, hungry for Mahmoud's falafel and the original cappuccino at Cafe Reggio's, where I once ate the whole burning oily plate and was full and satisfied and alive. And here I am now, still alive somehow, listening to everybody's legends and standing on my own two legs, work-worn, tired, sound awake. You guys know that cappuccino? That'll wake you up. All right, I'll just read a couple of old things, because the new stuff is like creepy. I don't want to read COVID poems. It's like, fuck that, man. I'll save that for the COVID anthology 20 years from now. So should we all be so lucky to be alive then? But fuck, this is sad anyway. I don't know. More poems about buildings and food and pizza, magazines. Farewell issue. I don't want to buy any more memorial magazines commemorating, I can't even spell commemorating, you and your life which is ended. And then I turn to this book and write until the ink is dead too, until I'm just trawling horrible inkless trenches into the page. These dumb ghost lines are like you are, an impression, something weighty and insistent was here, but we can't quite make it out now. Find a pencil, shade it in, conjure up a ghost. I don't like this. I don't feel anything. For a while there, I felt everything. I don't know if that was better. I cried in the street, in the post office line. I stay up now till dawn, refreshing your name on the internet. They call this searching behavior. Nothing breaks my concentration. I'm commemorating. I'm learning how to spell commemorate. I'm twisting toward the sunlight like a half-alive vine. The sunlight's artificial. I sit with my silence in the rain. I don't know what to talk about with people. My concentration is utterly broken. There's a chorus of bright lights and kind words and chasms of dark things I can't seem to cross over or even understand, but I keep dredging deeper into this page as if I could press the words in deep enough, as if I could tattoo your ashes back to life, as if I could write and write until time spun backwards and our pages were blank and the ending was beautifully unwritten. I got the all right, okay. Geek in business. Hey, so much better than a Zoom reading. You guys are giving me hope for whatever. Somebody grab your phone. All right, here's oh, sorry. Well, fuck it, whatever. This one takes place in LA. I'm sorry. Like I didn't think about that until right now. Wrong city. But it's also about a dream, so it's not a real thing anyway. So like it doesn't matter. We're all ephemeral beings, it's okay. This is God, it's like an awful theme. I tried to bring uplifting shit, and like all my poems are about like death and ghosts and seeing ghosts and dreams of ghosts. Fuck, everybody's dead. Oh my God, we're mortals. Okay. Serious poetry time. All right. This is called Pretend We're Dead. It's a beautiful sunny day here in the springtime. The flowers are blooming, and here's some poems about death. Corpses, skulls, ghosts. Fucking death, man. Behave yourself. Sorry. Pretend we're dead. Tired of the poisons, I think I'm witching down now, getting straight, eating the night. I put this city in my witch's brew, dark Melrose and sunset, say it like a spell. The boy was liquid, they said, poured out on the concrete, the light gone out. I remember him 1,000 pages deep, see him in my sleep, our acid-washed boys deep in their blonde decay. And me, I wear my time machine around my neck, like a magnet, it draws the chicks, the witchy chicks, the nighttime kids. What is that thing? What does it do? It's the stuff dreams are made of. It's a Sega Genesis. It's a TV VCR combo from Circuit City, from the muddy banks of the Wishka, from Aleka's attic. I see it in my sleep when I take the poison, when I brew the spell, when I see those ghost boys again under the jacaranda, under the neon marine layer. They sprawl through the smog and kick their way on stage. They are acid and belief, liquid certainty, impossibly solid, born of the cigarette burn, the frayed amp cord, the bass kick and shitty PA, the beer run, the macro plate, the denim and cloves, the corduroy and camels, the spit and gloss and dirty hair, lanky grease, poetry, come back to me, spit this rune, I never was cool, spit this poison out and eat this crumbling city instead. I see you ecstatic in your mad thrash, and I'll never see you ecstatic again, wild and flying. I thought we'd meet, but not like this. I thought you'd talk me through falling or something. I thought we'd build a ship or a poem or eat the same city someday. I thought we'd lean into these serpentine hills and holler, but you had to go and disintegrate. So sleep till I see you, and I'll be sleeping too, dream baby, what a waste. None of these other witchy babies are half as ecstatic as you. I wake up ready to go now, ready to spin backwards till I stop. They ask me about my time machine. It's a mechanical spell book. It's a ham radio. It's a Toynbee convector. It's a rotary phone. It's a dead language that only our tongues can speak, can spit. It's glitter. It's the past. It's our secret. It's a samurai sword. It's a concrete graveyard I pass by every Halloween to say hello to your ghost, to kiss your tombstone brow, to wish you were here, to burn this postcard and then scatter the ash. When do I get to become the light, my brother? How much longer do I have to live in this daytime midnight, speaking my spell, waiting to catch your ecstasy? Does this impossible clock ever stop? Thank you, George, for having me on the book. Thank you for having me on the book.
I just want to say that nobody's taken me up on the offer to stand up and go back and drink wine during the show, but James.
Okay.
Yeah, Angelo Verga. Yeah, here goes Edwin. So I take it back, a couple of hardcore guys. And feel free to do so because I brought enough wine here to sink the Chris Christie, you know. So the less I have to pull back out in my car, the better. So drink that. And Ngoma Hill, he does not know this, but he was the first person in New York City to introduce me to the stage after I returned from overseas at the alternative New Year's Day poetry reading. I forget where it was at, maybe the Barrio Poetry Club, but I've always thought of that when I introduced him to the stage, and I have many times. And Ngoma Hill, please welcome him.
What's up, y'all? It's so great to see people, you know, instead of zooming, you know what I'm saying? Thanks, George, for putting this anthology together. It's really great. And thanks for having me in it. I think I'm gonna open up with the poem from the anthology, which I don't know by heart or nothing. So let me put on these glasses, maybe I can see, and that might help the situation. What you think? Yes, here we go. Zoology. Epigraph. The circus is in town. The circus is the town, and you never get out of town. The original Last Poets. Sundays, the visitors come on tour buses uptown, double park for blocks, soaking up space and gospel. Fill the offering plate, leave before the sermon, don't speak English anyhow. Theater of reality is in the street across 7th Avenue at the liquor store. T-Bone does the baboon, pants hanging off his ass, cracked out, toothless. Cameras, snap, snap. Lucy's, he mumbles, got that cheap nicotine, real surreal it all seems, the American dream. Can you spare some change? Life is a crapshoot. Give me a small down payment on the Triborough Bridge. Watch the natives do the hustle, selling stolen village voices for 50 cents. Smile, click, click. Next stop, Sylvia's, now owned by Japanese entrepreneurs to dissuade fear of a black planet. After all, Starbucks is down the street from the Apollo just to make sure caffeine dreams are realized. The homeless man with the raccoon eyes opens the door, reaching for a tip since the stock market dipped. Street corner prophets proselytize, screaming about the devil. Jesus never called himself a Christian, but the Holy Bible says God made the devil too, so boom, we ain't scared of ghosts, not even holy ones. Pour a little liquor for the walking dead. There's nourishment in the cracked plate on the altar by the bodega owned by Muslims on the corner. Just jazz and gibberish spoken here, no jive. Don't waste cash on the tour guide book. The jelly speaks in tongues. So, I figured I'd do a couple. I got this new book, it's called I Didn't Come Here to Tap Dance, that I just put out here. And I thought it was kind of pretty interesting when George asked me to be a part of this. And you'll understand why when I read this poem. It's called Up South. She says, write a poem about being a poet from New York. I'm thinking, that could be hard. See, to begin with, I've lived here since '79, but I'm not from New York. I'm from Richmond, VA, the capital of the Confederacy. I followed the North Star like a runaway slave searching for freedom, trying to get away from picket lines and Klan signs, only to find Ku Klux Killer cops hiding behind badges instead of sheets. Now don't get me wrong, I love New York. During my college days, all my boys bit from the Big Apple. I hung out with them because they were the coolest, but they are all gone now. So I pour a sip for Lou Wheeler and Leslie Scott. I take my little money from a summer job at Menacing to buy Italian knits, sharkskin pants, and Playboy shoes with the thick rubber soles from McCready and Schreiber. I wouldn't tell anyone where I was really from. All the flyest girls like brothers from New York, and I wanted to be cool like that. My boys introduced me to Black Power, Black Muslims, Black Nationalists, Black Panthers, and Black poetry. Immanuel Amiri Baraka, as he was called in, Hakeem Adabuti, aka Don L. Lee, Carolyn Rogers, Askia Muhammad Toure, and the Last Poets. Of course, with the exception of some of the Last Poets, none of them were from New York anyway, but it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be like them. I'd never heard talk like that before, and I was hooked, and poetry was my drug of choice. Malcolm's murder triggered the Black arts movement. The seed was planted, watered, and nurtured at all the poetry spots. The Spirit House in Newark, the East and Uhuru Sasa Shule in Brooklyn, the African Poetry Theater in Queens, and the National Black Theater in Harlem. But then you wanted to know about the poetry. Thing is, I never called myself a poet. Jelly or griot might be a better description, since I rock anything with a string, plus I can sing. Some call me Dr. Rockefeller, the godfather of spoken word. You better ask somebody if you haven't heard. Actually, I write a lot too. You might say I'm just a pissed off brother with a pen. One of my friends reminded me, America is a place where the past always looks like the future. But these twisted I wanna be hip hoppers and Ku Klux Killer cops think niggas come in all colors. So I still do protests and die-ins, cause in this atmosphere, I can't breathe, and New York just seemed like up south to me. So, thank you, Vic. So I was having this conversation with a brother about what good poetry is and who's a good poet. And as a result from the conversation, I wrote this poem, and the poem is called Don't Call Me No Poet, This Ain't No Love Song. See, Mama taught me that prayer changes things, so I'm praying for enough steel to keep it real. Because death is on the door out of here, but we'd be scared to leave our bodies. This body's been kicked around long enough, it wasn't supposed to last forever, and my soul cries out to be free. Besides, the only thing constant is change. So I'm sitting meditating on the one when a b-boy in his boombox scared my spirit guides away, and I'm lost on a rat race trying to buy shit my TV says I need to survive. And I'm searching for freedom, but I can't define it anymore, so I'm on a vision quest trying to find a way up out of this mess. I'm walking through the park, talking to the trees. They got a protest going on against giving up their lives for cashness. And the local snowmakers union won't cross the picket line until Santa kicks in with some kickback. So it's 79 degrees in New York in December. And it seems like the whole damn universe is under attack by the greedy as they plunder the world, exploiting the needy. So I'm rolling 7 ounce deep in mysticism. I meditated till the lights went out, but Con Ed wasn't hearing it. Not leaving an ohm to cut the darkness. So I'm burning 7 candles trying to find the light of God inside, but she's busy down at the Salvation Army Hill in a barrel window was shot by a 10-year-old white kid with a tech man. I'm from Oregon. It seemed like faith was raped of her charity and everything seems hopeless. So I'm hanging out in poetry circles trying to get the truth. But all I did is soft porn stroking my ego to erection with no satisfaction. Too many poets saying nothing well, and I'm looking for substance, something I can take home. There's not enough meat to fill a doggy bag, so I stick to vegetarianism like a religion trying to ward off starvation. I'm chanting for peace and justice, but Kevin Banks was murdered by the new weapon of choice. The killer cop's 2-way radio to the head killed him dead. No backup needed, no caution heeded. And I'm praying for Buddha. He's laying face down, spread eagle on the concrete, jacked up by 5-0 on the corner of 112th Street. And it seemed like the interest on karmic debt is higher than bail, so I guess he'll spend cashless in jail. The herb spot's been shut down to improve the quality of life for street corners. Pharmaceuticals were for death at half the price. While the last legal drug dealers, local watering holes like the newsroom in the Bronx offers 3-for-1 shots of rock gut watered down, except the poets like me were banned for using the N-word because the owner is an N-word, but alcoholism kills your liver first. And it's easy to collect from the taxes of the dead, so I scream out other obscenities instead, like poverty and ignorance plus imperialism equals fascism, but justice turns a deaf ear to my fears. So I'm looking for a detox for Jesus addiction. But the offering plate gets in the way because organized religion is big business, but nobody tells the poor as they pay and pray for more salvation from this hell we be living in. So Hail Mary full of gold, the Vatican's been bought and sold. Hell, we had homes and jobs before you brought us here. My ancestors built pyramids for years before picking cotton. Maybe that's been forgotten. Now I'm quoting Hakeem Adabuti saying Jesus saves, Jesus saves, Jesus saves green stamps, but green stamps are obsolete and the poor and the homeless beg for food to eat in this land of plenty when not a damn thing is free. So don't call me no poet, because me, I'm just a pissed off brother with a pen. Thanks, y'all.
Well, I could say that we've traveled various places and performed together up in Woodstock and various places in New York City, but I remember Valery Oisteanu most from his performance of serial poetry at the National Arts Club on Gramercy. And just a big booming voice. Please welcome Valery Oisteanu.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. It's a very auspicious day today. I'm celebrating 50 years of escaping from Romania and landing in East Village. God bless East Village. Yeah. So, I've been performing there at the Theater for the New City, the Living Theater, all the local venues of East Village, the Poetry Project, of course. So I'm going to read you some interesting stuff today. This is a book called Perks in Purgatory. I think it was my 7th book. And it's being now on the wall of Whitney Biennial, thanks to Steve Cannon. We have to bring an homage to Steve Cannon, who with his gathering of the tribes really changed a lot in East Village on 3rd Street and Avenue B and C. I mean, he really put together artists and writers and musicians, created some kind of a vortex that is still going on. And that's, that's very important, that it's still going on. It's called The Tribes, and Chavisa Woods is keeping the flame. Thank you, George, for doing this incredible anthology. Actually, he used one of my photos on the cover. Yeah. And I think it's great choice. It was taken from Washington Street in Dumbo, looking at the Manhattan Bridge. So, I was thinking to read you a poem called Who is Afraid of East Village? It's a long, rambling poem, and I think I'm going to spare you. And I'm going to read you the meaning of my life instead. And it takes you on I spent most of my beginning of my life, 30 years, on a train, because I was born in a gulag in Kazakhstan, and my parents took me all through Russia on trains for years and years. Then we landed in Ukraine, and then from Ukraine on the trains again to Romania, and I didn't know how to get rid of those trains, but finally, somewhere I escaped, and since then I've been taking a lot of planes. No more trains for me. Searching for nothing, that is my mission. In a stratosphere of uselessness. Searching Saturn or the Amazonian basin, searching for the meaning of my life, searching. Born under German bombardment before Hitler's death in Kazakhstan, lived through Stalin in USSR, among Gulag detainees and survivors. Borat, exiled in Minor Asia. Soviet trains were my real life. Russian rails were my dharma. Chernovitz, Odessa, Bucharest, hiding from KGB surveillance, schooled in socialist Romania, always heavily indoctrinated. Lenin, Lenin, Lenin. A parade of tyrants, big and small. Ceausescu, Stalin, in between, enforced brainwashing. A bottle of homemade vodka, more brainwashing. An old prostitute, another brainwashing. A drunkard dissident song, whispered. A fist of despair shaking in the air. Fighting when the secret police, and finally escaping from behind Iron Curtain, traveling around the world incognito, lived in the 70s, the hippies' liberation, drugs, orgies, and AIDS devastation. Nixon, Reagan, Bush, Bush 1, Bush 2, war with lead toy soldier, meaning is a fire melting in the same fire. Grenada, Panama, Salvador, Nicaragua, another parade of generals, big and small, some very short, others very tall, propelled by greed for power, fueled by the power of greed. Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, Kosovo, human melting from disastrous heat. The Muslim hate from Iran in 78, the towers of hell fell in Manhattan, the endless revenge in the Middle East, in Afghanistan mountains, in Iraq desert, soldier, crusaders, the victims, the terrorists, the worship of death on global TV. We look for wars, and wars look for us. A civilization of neo-colonial empires. Maybe I'm hitched to the wrong dream, visiting someone else's nightmare. My meaning of life, my meaning, it's to be the prophet of doom. So the meaning of life, it's to seek the meaning of life. Or highest, maybe spirituality, but by the time you figure it out, it's over. Kali Yuga, by all means, in the final draft, Kali Yuga. So, this is a poem from another book called Anarchy for a Rainy Day. It was translated in Romanian and lately in Japanese. So I'm very proud of that. So I'm going to read a dedication poem. It's interesting, somebody asked me, what kind of poet you are? And I said, I'm an obit poet. I write obits. Because I was friends with so many artists and poets and they all died. I'm old, so I started writing. This one, it's called The Priest of Jazz, to Ted Jones. Ted Jones was the most incredible poet / artist that finally joined the Surrealist Circle in New York. We had a small circle under the mentorship of Charles Henry Ford in Dakota, and Ted Jones was present among us. He's known for giving very short readings, and his motto is, no bread, no dead.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. He traveled in Timbuktu, he traveled all over the world. He carried with him an interesting cardboard box that was sort of like an accordion of drawings and paintings, and I was very happy to participate in that exquisite corpse that he created, and it's present now in Tate Museum in London, but it was before at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's an incredible 100 artists from all over the world participating in exquisite corpse. So Ted Jones, thank you. The priest of jazz. He was ready to play anytime. He was able to take on anyone in Paris, Berlin, or Timbuktu. Jazz was his religion till the end. Traveling surrealist shaman with a hammock and a Beats book under his horny arms. Birds' music in his heart, preaching for Charlie Parker, Langston Hughes, the beat poets, jazzoetry, Mouse and Tease, Triple Trouble Ted flutters by, available for impromptu lecture or a rumble in a crumpled bed, surreal dreams of aphrodisia, an instant mirror for rhinos. He kissed the unpardonable pussy. He liberated sexually oppressed, fermented, battered, and poeticized. Ted Jones, the nomadic consciousness. Thank you. A very abstract sort of poem that appeared recently in Sensitive Skin. We used to run an April poetry month in Sensitive Skin, and every day another poet will publish, but it's finished. But nevertheless, I decided to send him a poem, and he was so nice to print it. This one is called Lost and Found. A chandelier of clouds twists over the mountains, signaling the launch of the morning. But that will not end with my dreams, which refuse to stop the apocalyptic nightmare. The invisible reality lies undetected by the senses. Ladders keep the trees from falling. Fish nets embrace ghostly birds. Next to the pond, a tiny tent with a fireplace. In a beginning, there is no beginning. The heart has its own silent brain, running out of tears at the curves of eyelids. No one has discovered the cure for awakenedness. In the east, hardly noticed, the sun superimposes over the universe, now a bit closer to oblivion, that bright tiredness of memories of a future drowning in a muddy echoes of afterlife. Thank you. So I'm going to end with my poem in the anthology, beautiful anthology, really great job, George, thank you. This one is called Assisted Revolution in Central Park. I'm the only poet that writes in Central Park. Giving you a little bit of a background, usually it's a happy poem, but this time I was actually scared shit, sitting and waiting the results of operation that my wife had. So I was sitting there with another friend of mine, a poet, Alan Graubart, and just writing this anxiety. The faces of granite sculpture in transitory loneliness, sad interlocked trees hang over the benches, flowers disturb the textures of footprints and hoof marks. A long-haul chessman received the call of an apprehensive spring. Pandemic mask, outfits of doom, mask robbers unite. The future is yours. Shot 3 times in a booster, anonymous face, shielded heads on pandemic shoes. Revolution by the post-pandemic sex desire. An effortless flow through the bridges of eyes. Stuffed horses pull carriages sheepishly, while bikers snake along the path. There is no melody in the string of noises. It's a sad afternoon of wounded soul, the melted remnants of daylight chained forever to water. Bird chat, savage, mad love by the fountain, small boats and ducks are lost in the wind, all compete in arousing colors under sunlight. It's a touch of grace in the sound of bird talk on the other side, on the other side, on the other side of the space-time continuum. Thank you very much. I'm the voice of East Village.
One of the most, among the many beautiful things I discovered by putting this anthology together was the interconnectedness between poets in New York City over time. Valery mentioning Ted Jones and somebody,
Steve Gannon.
and Ngoma mentioning Last Poets. Was Jeff Wright mentioning, actually quoting from Papoleto, no, not from Papoleto, from getting old. Who is it? Who'd you quote from? You actually read the poem, and I can say the poem out loud. Dear equal opportunity employer.
Oh, that telephone booth went on 9.5.
Yeah. So, and these are one of the beautiful things about what we are as poets in New York City, and I helped me to discover that by being part of this poetry collection. Was the interconnectedness with people that are legends and what they mean to us today. So, thank you for those. Mention other people. Yuko Otomo has spent more time with me in a car than any other poetry. With Steve Dalachinsky driving up and back to Woodstock, where Steve used to insist that we take the Palisades Parkway.
He didn't drive.
Yuko is a great poet in her own right, in a very different way from Steve, and I'm delighted to have a representation of her work in the collection, as well as a poem of Steve's that's in the collection. Yuko rode up with me in my convertible with the top down. It's her first time in a convertible, and her hair looks perfect. Please welcome Yuko Otomo.
Seriously, I felt like I was in a movie because this was like, he has one of the coolest small convertible, 2 people riding. It was fantastic. It was like a really, thank you, George. A special experience of my life. Anyway, I didn't bring extra material to read, so I will read from this book and also I will talk. I wish Steve was here with all of us. to annoy us and to charm us, to make a mess and noise and everything. And he would love to be here. And interestingly, Steve and I were here in 2016. Papoleto just told me. He invited us to come and see his apartment in this place when they renovated this place as an art space. He gave us a tour, and it was fantastic. And I still remember the whole experience. And I said, yes, this is the way to go. And now it's happening. Look at this. It's so great. And, congratulations for everything. And
We're gonna do this again.
Yes.
Before June, right before the end of June,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this again and see if we can get us paid. Right, okay? Keep going.
most of all, thank you, George Wallace, for even thinking about something like this. It's almost incredible nobody thought about it, to put all the poets together as a big community, disregarding all the factional, separations and everything, to put them all in the same container with alphabetical, very, good order. No hierarchy or no judgmental description. And this is such a big job, and I know to have an idea is one thing, but to complete the idea into the actuality is a tremendous, tremendous work. And we have to all thank George and all the people who helped him to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I love this cover. Valery, I love your photo. It's perfect. It's such a kind of slight melancholy and very beautiful, and it's nice.
Whose collages are inside?
What?
Who has collages?
Oh, yes. So first, Steve was a New Yorker. He was born in New York, Brooklyn. And he started to come to the village when he was a teenager as a weekend villager. He took a subway for the weekend to be in the Greenwich Village. Very funny story. He said, I took a pill in Brooklyn, and then through the trip, and when he arrived at West Forest, it was perfect. And he became all the friends with the so-called Greenwich Village kids who were born in Manhattan. And then anyway, so he had so much. And then he moved to our apartment when he was very young, and sadly we lived there for like long time. And for me too, I never lived in one place this long. Like I live in New York City over 40 years. I lived much less in my native land, Japan. And I love New York for a few reasons, because New York is a very experimental city. It's a really one of a kind. It's not like a regular city in a regular nation. This is like we have a completely different sensitivity and a principle, and then we challenge. And it changes every moment. That's what I love. When I was in Japan, I loved my country, I loved my culture, everything, but I was so bored. Everything is always the same. Nothing changes, I was so frustrated. So for me, New York is, it's perfect. And I love, so this New York City book is like a very, very special for me. So when George asked me to send him something for Steve and for me, I picked one poem because most of his poems are, New York poems. So, but I picked one particular very New York poem called Subway Systems. Subway Systems by Steve Zalachinsky. I have a double life, the homeless shaman said. There are two of me. I have two selves. I never use them at the same time. I live in double time. I try not to make it a habit. New York is my nightmare, my dream. It is what is beneath the trucks. Defiled virgin hole, maladjusted transsexual goddess, cross-eyed cross-dresser, homeless shaman as greasy as the trucks. I am consumed by jealousy, he says. It is my job to carry this burden so that you do not. New York is skeleton and frame, heaven, hell, tributes and lies. The facts as he sees them, skylight and line, city of fallen angels, extinguished stars. New York is nature mold, landscape and eats. Jesus, Buddha, and God. New York lives on borrowed digital time, like shaman leading a double life. The good, the bad, and the epic center. Outside the center, outside time, apart and apart from America, which is beneath the truck. Shaman living on outside time. New York is two selves, never the same twice, never living together, as to not use each other up. Body, soul, ripped, greasy, ugly, love. New York is what is beneath the self, the other self. That's Steve's piece. I'm going through his paper, and he was a maniac, as you know. He wrote so much, he made so many choruses, it's like overwhelming, it's almost depressing to just challenge the mountain. Anyway, he wrote, but one thing I really realized was he wrote so many poems for people who had no voices. Lots of poems for homeless people. It's really beautiful that he wrote for the people who couldn't speak. So this subway system poem was one of them, and I remember when he wrote it. Anyway, now I'm reading my poem. Actually, my poems, two of my poems are written for Robert Frank's The Americans. He had two beautiful photos of New York scenes, and I wrote for both of them. So the title of the poem is the title of his photography, New York City. A man is a woman, and a woman is a man. Only when you hide your face, the world reveals itself clearly to you. Human hip bones, harder than those iron fences, wind swifter, wiser, and faster than fish bones do. Troubles, pranks, tricks. A woman is a man, and a man is a woman, and the feet are minds, and eyes are feet. Where is today's catch? That's one poem. Another, next one is called Bar, New York City. That's also his title. Don't shout. Speak easy, in a hush. A jukebox shining like a monolith serenades a popular song of our youth. Let's fool ourselves thinking it's not drinks that we want, but the shaded interior of somewhere where the sun does not reveal the details of our lives too cruelly. Let's speak in a dry whisper, pretending that the sticky floors and a cloudy mirror suit our desire, well, to be left alone. Let's act as if we are proud and civil, not swollen and disproportioned. Let's enjoy the dark daydreaming together, believing that everything is fine and dandy, finally. Thank you. big when we met at the height of everybody.
Yuko Otomo, thank you. It's my special privilege to now welcome to the stage, to the podium, Francine Witte, who, if I said the words flash fiction and Norton Anthology, that would be sufficient to introduce her for many readings. But for purposes of this reading, Francine has really stepped up to the plate and helped me really immeasurably to make these events happen and to allow this book to become what it's becoming as we speak right now. So I'm grateful for that, as I am to all of you who contributed, but particularly grateful to Francine Witte. Please welcome Francine Witte.
Thank you so much, George. What's really special is, actually, I haven't seen the book. Well, I've seen it, but when George gave me my contributor's copy at AWP, I gave it to my niece. And then he gave me another copy, and I gave it to her friends. So I just kept giving it away because I was so grateful that they were there. It was just a nice reading. In fact, Maya was there. And what's really nice is I remember talking to George when he first was talking about this book as sort of like this little seedling, Our publisher, we have a mutual publisher, Diane Frank, Blue Light Press. This is Blue Light Press, and she's published my flash fiction, and she's published a couple of books by George. And she had come up with an anthology of San Francisco poems, right? And then George said, do a New York City one. Mm-hmm. And he was just sort of like talking about it. And then as the months went by, it's like, okay, la 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 la, curating, la 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 la, events, la la la, edits and proofing and all these things. And so now to see it, it's just amazing. And congratulations, George.
Yeah.
So, and thank you to Papo for allowing us to use this space. It's beautiful. And unfortunately, there are many poets, not many, but a sizable number who are no longer with us. So I'm going to read first one of them, Robert Bly, who I had the pleasure of hearing him read in Binghamton when I was in graduate school. And he came and he gave a 2-hour poetry reading, him standing there with his ukulele and philosophy, just like, ladies, when you're arguing with men, it's not your father. It's like little things like that are just, yeah. And he went on for 2 hours, and he would read poem, and more philosophy, more ukulele, and it just flew by. It was like 5 minutes. So here's his poem. Winter afternoon in Greenwich Village. It is Sunday afternoon. The shadows seem so frightening on the brownstone sills. The Missouri River must be floating, the same muddy brown. The boats cross the front silently to the naked moonlight. Cross the river silently to the naked moonlight. I cannot say why a Sunday afternoon in a New York apartment should seem to be the night among the teepees at Jackson Hole. Jim Bridger lugs his Shakespeare through the stumps. In his shack, he swears at Iago far into the night. Outdoors, a beaver swims in the mountain stream, feeling with his nose the doors of his home like a beehive, moving in a darkness the color of Indian hair. The tips of the small willows move above the silent water. It's Robert Bly.
Yeah.
And when George mentioned he was curating, poems, I said, okay, I'm writing 3 poems about New York, and one of them made it in. The one about me meeting Paul McCartney didn't, but that's like, I met Paul McCartney in the street one day. I almost passed out. All right, this poem though is about something else, and it's a prose poem, and I thank you, George, for publishing it. It's called The Moon Takes the E-Train. Stumbles drunk from a downtown dive, swirling himself milk into coffee, down the stairs and onto the train, and then forgets his way home. Gets off instead at 40 Deuce, looks around and remembers the old style scene, hookers and porn flicks. How often in his fullness he would push some poor sucker into Mr. Nasty's peep show. Watch him skulk out later, face wiped off, slither home to Bridge and Tunnel, lighter $20. But then the whole place went carnival, wax museums and kiddie theater, life-size Elmo and Elsa, who will pose for you for a hefty tip. And he's looking around at all the lights blinking into the dark and dark. And that's when a couple approaches the moon, asks to take a selfie. How much it would mean, what with the moon being the thing that made them fall in love. And the moon has heard this all before, how he's pulled the ties and planted romance, but really, he has a long, long night ahead trying to remember which subway will take him back to the sky. But instead, the moon takes a breath, looks at his reflection in the couple's eyes, nestles in between them, and smiles. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping that George will grace us with his poem. No problem.
Well, I could do that.
Yes, you can.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be wearing my glasses. Walking on 10th Street.
Yeah.
We were walking on 10th Street in the direction of the Neptune, a Polish diner, which Simon likes to go to, but you have to get there before 11 a.m. if you want the breakfast special. That's important because Simon likes to get there while they're still offering brunch, which means unlimited orange juice, endless hot cups of coffee. When we run into Max Camber, no time to stop and talk to Max Camber. Besides, Simon doesn't want to talk to Max Camber. Not at all. He doesn't want to talk to him because even though Max studied film at UCLA, he still doesn't know how to approach his subjects with what Simon likes to call sympathetic objectivity. So we shake Max Camber's hand. We keep walking, and eventually we get to Avenue A, where the Korean greengrocer is warming his hands over a chestnut stove. And a light rain is coming down, and Simon tells me about his recent visit to Provincetown, where he's editing the selected works of Robert Creeley. And how good it is to work with Creeley's son, because the man's devotion to his father is admirable, complete, and entirely sincere. And it's spring in the city, and the tourists are returning, not unlike the last time I came to town to visit Simon, but that was a different scene. We're on our way to drink red wine and listen to jazz at Mo Pitkins, where both of us looking sharp and photogenic and carefree on Avenue A. And some protesters started to crank things up. Crazy, said Simon. It was crazy. It was crazy, colorful, gay, and it was a parade of angry flowers. It was the Rose Bowl parade. It was the Thanksgiving parade, and St. Patty's, and maybe even Christmas in July. And we stopped to watch them and shout things out and smile at them with their big angry banners and their coterie of cops. But like I say, that was a while ago, and we were angels of the New York City night, whereas this is a Thursday morning in spring. And when we get to the diner, it's already 11:30, says the waitress in her polite but sad Polish accent. Over the bustling sound of waitresses, counter help, busboys, dishwashers, spoons, plates, customers, the joyful crash and clink of the world, and we looked out at the clock on the wall. We looked out at each other in our ragged clothes, and we looked at her and the entire Western world working for a living, except us. And we didn't care anymore. We were happy. We found each other. We didn't even mind paying full fare for our eggs over easy rye toast.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great show. Please, if I could get the poets who read today, come up and we'll get a picture. Somebody take a picture. Maybe Bruce can take a picture. You kind of James or somebody like that. Come on up.
You can always pull a screenshot.
We're gonna forget.
If there's anybody left, just take a
All right. I'm not covering anyone.
That's good.
I'm not blocking anybody with my height.
Okay.
Edwin.
Everybody say pose.
Moving like you know each other.
Yeah.
Get
You know
nice
somebody.
and,
Oh, Papoleto.
get nice and cozy.
Arms.
Win. Unless you're afraid.
The shorter people in the front.
Yeah, right, you shorter because you give us what?
Okay, you all owe me $20.
Here we go.
What? You know what, then you're free?
You're not going to get a smile that way.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
There you go.
That's the one.
There's something like this, there's a book on this.
One more.
I will photograph poets.